For years, I just thought I had no willpower. I could not stop eating. Even when I wanted to. It felt like my whole life was ruled by food, and there was so much shame that surrounded that. But turns out it wasn't just emotional eating or me not being able to do a diet. It was ADHD. Let's talk about it. So before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I was stuck in this perpetual loop of binge, restrict, binge, restrict. I would be on a diet and I'd be going to the absolute extremes, or I would be completely just going crazy with food. I'd eat because I was overwhelmed, overstimulated, bored, happy, sad. Any emotion that I felt triggered this response in me to turn to food. But no matter what strategy I tried, journaling, therapy, diet, whatever it was, nothing seemed to stick. And I would always look at it as there was some issue with me, like I didn't have the willpower, or I just needed to be stronger, or, you know, I'd look at people that were like naturally slim or didn't struggle with their weight and be like, you're just a better person than me. You're clearly just a better person than I am. I thought I was the problem. Like I was just destined to always struggle with my weight and always have this really negative, toxic relationship with food. And then in 2021, I lost over 10 stone with the 1-to-1 diet. And people will often say to me now, 4 years later, since I've maintained that weight loss, how have you maintained it? Like the weight loss itself wasn't the bit that I found so jarring, because I've lost large amounts of weight in the past. It was that I'd never been able to maintain a weight, not even a higher weight. Like I just never could maintain weight. My weight fluctuated like the wind. So when I had my assessment and I got diagnosed with ADHD, suddenly so much made sense. My impulsive eating, my executive dysfunction when it came to prepping and preparing food, the impulsive nature that I had with eating, like the food kind of aversions that I would suddenly get where I literally just could not eat something that I'd been eating for a month straight beforehand. It all suddenly fell into place beautifully. But what it did more than anything was it gave me access to, one, release so much shame that I had held about it for so many years, and two, it gave me the ability to view the ways in which that I help myself in a completely different way, because I realised that all of these methods that I'd been using to try and help myself with my relationship with food were coming through the lens of someone that has got a neurotypical way of thinking. Therefore, this is why they weren't working, because I wasn't applying strategies that were going to work for me and the way in which my brain operates when it comes to food. I did start medication, which I know not everyone will choose to do. However, for me, it was important. If a pill's going to fix me, I'm not one of these that's going to be like, no, I'm like, give it over here. And starting ADHD medication did not fix everything. However, it did have a substantial impact on my ability to work on my relationship with food. The best way I can describe what ADHD medication does for me is it allows me to pause. So for most of my life, especially with food, there was no pause. There was a kind of a thought and a reaction, or a feeling and a reaction. There was never that moment to kind of sit and just be like, okay, what do I want to do? Why is this happening? There was no pause. There was no pause at all. And it meant that that impulsiveness, that kind of binge eating, turning to food, there was no way of stopping it, because the minute it was in my head, I'd already kind of acted out in like with that behavior. But when I had that moment to pause, something really interesting happened. I started to realize that people that are perhaps not neurodiverse or haven't got things like ADHD or autism, they can pause. Their brains aren't like a million miles an hour. Making a meal isn't 57,000 steps. Like if they're going to make tea, they genuinely just think that. They think I'm going to make tea. Instead of me with 57 things just to get some chicken and salad on a plate and then having major executive dysfunction as a result of it. The ADHD meds quieted my brain and gave my brain a moment to just pause and think. And the thing is that ADHD medication did not fix everything. So I had a bit of a lapse in my binge eating, emotional eating back in the summer. And so it doesn't fix the issue. But what it does is it gives you a much more stable place to start in working on all that mindset work that you need to do in order to manage it long term. Similarly to if you were to take blood pressure medication. If you take blood pressure medication, your doctor's still going to say to you, you need to try and make these changes in your life. Try and reduce your stress, try and improve your diet. It's the same thing. The medication helps. The medication gives me a tool that I can then effectively work with. And that was the biggest thing. It felt like I was finally working with my mind instead of against it constantly. I would just encourage you to explore that with a really open mind, because sometimes putting those pieces together and understanding yourself more, it can be beyond game changing when it comes to areas of your life where you're struggling. Getting my ADHD diagnosis changed everything, and not just how I eat. It changed how I talk to myself, how I think about myself, how I look at the things that I struggle with. And if you are someone that is also got ADHD and has also struggled with their weight, you deserve to know that food is not the enemy, you are not the problem, and that you just need to look at the solution through a slightly different lens. I realised that actually my whole life, the biggest thing that was holding me back from making progress and feeling like I had control in this area was actually misunderstanding the whole problem.